So, it's been a while since I put out a video. First of all, I'm in the Grand Caymans right now. I've been here for a week. I was down in Florida for 2 weeks at Seminole Hard Rock. Seminole Hard Rock still has great tournaments. Let me tell you guys, in this video, what you guys are going to see is every single hand that I play on a day two. I know these videos aren't coming out every single week, so maybe the algorithm's a little different. We're going to do more long format videos. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I don't know if this is going to be a 30-minute video or an hour-long video right now. I'm sure you guys will be able to see it, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe. Also, if you want to check out the Etsy store, we have things like the 10 Commandments of Parliament Omaha on there. And again, if you're interested in playing with me online, hit me up on WhatsApp right over here. Just shoot me a message. I'll get you all squared away on that. I do get paid by PP Poker as an affiliate. They give me an income, which is nice. But yeah, you're going to see, while I was in Florida, I had a total of about $13,000 in cashes and approximately $6,800 in tournament buy-ins. And I just want to mention that real quick because, yeah, you might say, oh my God, I looked at your Hendon Mob and you made 13 grand. There's $6,800 worth of buy-ins just from tournaments. I've always been a cash game player. I'm transitioning into tournaments for a couple different reasons. One, it gives me more notoriety. I know for 2024, I ended up being down somewhere in the neighborhood between $3,000 and $5,000 from tournament buy-ins. Now that did include a 10K buy-in for the Big O, and it did include a 15K win in December. So prior to that, I was probably down about 20K in tournaments. Obviously this year for the month of January, I'm going to start off being up about 6-7K in tournaments, which is the right method that I want to be on. And I'm going to be in Dallas first week in February. Meetup game is coming up last Saturday of every month in February, March, April, and May. We're going to have a meetup game at the Venetian starting at 5 o'clock. And that's going to be a 5-5 PLO. And then starting the last Friday in March, we are going to have a 10-10 live stream game, mixed PLO. Now, initially we were going to do this at the end of February. It just so happened our very first time of live streaming, we had a scheduling conflict with PokerGo, because as you know, PokerGo will be live streaming it at the Venetian Poker Room. So they were doing the GPI awards at the same time, and I'm not going to say anything about that. I tell you what, I've been here in the Grand Caymans for a week, staying at Flounder's place, hanging out with Flounder, the wife, the parents. This has been absolutely amazing. I'm so rejuvenated. It's literally like my third vacation in about 3 years or so. The last two was with my wife on our, I think it was our 1-year anniversary, and my wife on our honeymoon. So, yeah, I haven't played poker in a week. I almost feel sorry for everybody in Dallas. The nice thing about Hollywood, Florida is you do play with a ton of grinders. So you play with the likes of like Phil Huey is somebody that we were playing with pretty regularly. AJ, the Eagles guy, he's one of WSOP bracelet. I didn't see Frankie Odell there, but you know, regular crushers who have $2 and $3 million worth of winnings, you see at the Florida series regularly. So you might say, Professor, why do I want to go there to play any of the Florida series? Well, it's good practice for the WSOP because you already are playing with some of the best players in the world when you're playing at Seminole Hard Rock. So for tournament strategy and tournament practice, it's really good. For me to be able to book a win playing with some of the best in the world is great, okay? But yeah, unfortunately, Wayne, I think he went 0 and like 12 in tournaments or something ridiculous like that. And if you go back to December, he's like 0 and 25, which, you know, it's funny because I've been grinding a little bit longer than Wayne has. And I remember last year when Wayne said to me, he goes, you know, I think I'm just gonna play like 90% tournaments and 10% cash. I just laughed. I was really stoned, and I think I laughed for like 45 minutes straight. And he eventually, you know, he's like, what the hell is so funny, Josh? And I said, bro, only crazy people do that, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, there's plenty of tournament pros who do a really good job, but they have a different mindset. I don't know. Like, I've been a cash player most of my life. I'll always be a cash player most of my life. Even if I ship a big one, even if I win one for $250,000 or 100,000 or whatever, it doesn't matter. I will take that and play, focus on cash still. It'll just be higher stakes cash. Maybe it'll be 5,100 PLO or 2550 100. I don't know. But it's the higher stakes tournaments don't get easier, that's for sure. I think it's really important when you go into a tournament setting like the World Series. Wayne and I talked about this, having an actual plan. Like, Wayne and I were there last year for 45 days. We focused on bracelet hunting or bracelet chasing a lot. We ended up burning ourselves out, losing a bunch of money. And I said to him at the end of the year, and he said to me, we kind of agreed that we thought playing some of the smaller buy-ins, like $300, $400 buy-in tournaments, are way softer because of all the pro crushers are over at the bracelet event. And our goal is to make money. We should really focus on making money. And, you know, that's part of poker is game selection, table selection, even in a cash game, you know. And maybe it's just because I haven't focused so much on tournaments as I have in cash, but I think last year I realized that tournament selection in tournaments is just as important as game selection and table selection is in cash. But let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments. Go ahead and share this to other people if you want. I will tell you, while I was here at the Grand Caymans last night, who I consider my first student called me up at like midnight, playing a house game in Dallas, which I'm probably gonna be there next week. And I answer the phone and he's like, hey, professor, he's like, I got one of your viewers here. And I started talking to him. The guy's like, hey man, he's like, I go to you for my poker content, and when I run or relate something in PLO, I turn to your channel. And it was such a great feeling. Like, I had one of the best days yesterday. Went to Stingray City. I can't even remember what else I did, but Stingray City, Coral Reef. Oh my God, just so many fantastical things. And then to top it off, you know, right before I go to bed, I get a phone call from somebody who's telling me that I'm their source of inspiration. Thank you. You humble me, sir. All of you do. All of my viewers humble me. You guys keep me motivated. I appreciate it. I do get burnt out at poker from time to time, but I am rejuvenated. I will try kicking out a video about every 2 weeks. It won't be weekly. I wish it could be, but quite frankly, these videos, if they're going to be an hour long, it takes a lot to edit them. So just make sure you share them and promote them. I appreciate it. Check out the Etsy store down below. And obviously, if you want to play with me online, hit me up on WhatsApp right over here. So in the meantime, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Play smart and run like a god. So we found a bag for day 2. Played a little bit differently than I normally do. There's a few opportunities where I would have either had a lot more chips or a lot less chips that I decided to pick better spots. One hand I had was ace-4, 8-queen double suited with ace-queen of diamonds. And I'm the original raiser under the gun. Cutoff calls, who is super loose, and we're on like level 12 or something, so we're bagging around level 14. That's our expected bag. That's what the previous flight's bagged. And that's important to know, that when you're on a multi-day flight, you want to know when approximate levels other flights bagged, so you can kind of have an idea of what 12.5% is.
Yeah, so with a diamond nut flush draw, the flop ended up coming up Jack deuce 6 with 2 diamonds, and one person went all in, and the small blind, and I had about 60,000 in chips, and he went all in for like 26,000, 27,000. And with the nut flush draw and nothing else to go with it, like no pair, I just had some overcards. Plus the player was a little tight, so I figured he's always getting it all in here with minimum 2 pair. Even though it might be like Jack 6 deuce, it's either you got a set or he has 2 pair. So I decided to fold, and I ended up seeing what his hand was because he ended up getting called by Jack deuce 3 5, and the turn came a 4, and it was even a black 4, and then the river was like a king of hearts or something. And so that other person busted, but you know, I reflect upon that hand because at 60,000, you can afford to lose 30,000 in chips, but it's about picking the right spots and picking the right opportunities. And also in pot limit Omaha, when it comes to tournaments, you generally want your opponents to be drawing. You don't want to be drawing. It depends on how many chips you want to risk. And at the time, I think the blind levels were like 1,000, 2,000. So, you know, I'm sitting there. If I risk 30,000 in chips, all of a sudden I'm left with 15 big blinds, which means I have to play the rest of the tournament completely different. And that's just if I call and I lose. If I just fold, I have 30 big blinds, which will give me more maneuverability down the road. So I guess you could say that that was fold equity. But I remember there was 2 times where I had nut flush draws and people were betting pot, either on the flop or on the turn, and I just ended up laying it down because the other part was if I had chips behind and somebody was betting pot on the turn, you know, you have to ask yourself, is this person the type of player that's going to call when the flush comes in? Yeah, so I just picked different spots and played a little tighter. And, you know, going back to my roots, tighter is righter for tournaments, you know, once you get past registration. So let's see what we can do on day 2. We are going full badass mode with some sunglasses. We're giving it a whirl. Oh, we just had breakfast. Oh. Tournaments in 2 hours. So it's raining. How are you feeling, Charles? Charles is in day 2. What's your chip stack at again?
87.5.
And his table draw, 87.5. He's technically third in chips, but second in chips is 88. So, and the rest are like short stacks. So he's got a plan on how to exploit those, target those stacks, run it up, get to the final table. No, Charles had a plan. He never came to find out his full potential on his plan. He ended up only getting around 30th. So, but it's important when you go into a day 2, you have a plan to start off with, and sometimes the card gods are just not going to let you execute it. Better luck next time.
Simple, easy game.
And I'm going to finish second, because I'm really good at finishing second. Wayne, how do you feel about tournaments right now, buddy?
I was thinking I was going to go play cash today, but I said to myself, if I've been out here for 2 weeks and there's a Big O tournament today, I have to fire it. So that's the plan. Hoping to dig out of a hole like Josh just said. So we'll see how it goes.
You know, using Wayne's analogy, give credit where credit's due. You know, cash is like the person you're trying to pick up at 2 o'clock in the morning at a bar. It's pretty reliable. They're like a 2 to 4, and you're like, I could probably take this person home. Yeah, that's what cash is. It's always there. Tournaments. Oh, that's like the person that walks in at 11 o'clock at night into a bar who's a 10. And everybody wants to take that person home. Let's see if we can go bag a fucking 8.5 today.
Play smart, everyone.
Yes.
And
I'm like God.
I'm pretty much in the zone right now. Smoked a big fat doob last night. Oh my God, much needed. We had a situation with the Airbnb that was just a nightmare where Airbnb canceled our reservation at 11 o'clock at night. We get back to the Airbnb. The host has already changed the code on the lock, so we had to climb through the window to get in. I messaged the host at like 2 in the morning saying, hey buddy, we'll check out at 11 o'clock in the morning. Basically had a safety issue. We had a leak, told the host about it. The host said he would send a plumber over. That was on Thursday. Tuesday afternoon, I walk into the house and the plumber's in the house. You can probably imagine why I had an issue with that, being that we're poker players and we carry money like in the house. So yeah, nothing was taken, of course, but still, I'm never okay when I walk into an Airbnb that I'm renting and somebody is there that I don't recognize. But yeah, we're tired. We were up until 4 in the morning. Like I was on the phone with Airbnb until 3. We bagged at like 1:30 or something. Got home, Airbnb. I went back and forth for about an hour till about 2:30, and then of course I had to wind down, get something to eat, get some shut-eye. Surprisingly, the host was up at like 3 in the morning when I was messaging him, so that was good. And yeah, so we booked a new place. We've got a jacuzzi this time. Airbnb came through. They actually gave me a full refund on everything. So like we stayed here for 2 weeks. It's like $2,200. They're giving us a full refund. We already rebooked something for like $1,200. So it was like a net plus of like $1,000. Wayne's in the Big O right now. It looks like there's only 22 people in the Big O. Wayne's probably regretting having playing the Big O, because I'm sure there's a lot of players in the PLO 4 that probably would play the Big O that are in day 2. Of course, we're at 39 players left on day 2. So, but I'm pretty tired. I didn't take any phentermine. I'm just gonna push through it.
You streaming?
Not streaming, but yeah, I'm gonna record whatever day 2 I can get. Just looking at the chip stacks. This guy's got his own zip code over here. You two guys, both of you guys have your own zip codes. I have chip envy. We are doing every single hand, including hands that we fold. Let me know what you guys think of the new format. As you can see, we've got a level, blind amount, starting stack. We have the board. We have BB, which is big blind, hero, and then what the suits are. So the small blind raised it to 9,000. I called. Flops ace, queen, 5. He ends up leading out and betting, and I fold. Going on to the next hand, so there are going to be some hands where I just simply fold, both pre-flop and post-flop. There's not going to be too much analysis in there. But what I will tell you is I started with like 103,000. I started off in the big blind. So as you can see, I'm in the small blind next hand. I go ahead and limp. Got 9-4, queen, queen, flops, king, 7-5. The big blind seems like a pretty passive feller, so I check. He goes ahead and checks. The turn's a 6. My hand doesn't improve. I check. He checks. And the river's an 8. And I could bluff at it, but it's only a 9K pot. I check. I turn over queens, and we're good. Now, one thing that you're going to see that's pretty consistent is when I'm not in either position or in any of the blinds, that there's a lot of folding. So button, cutoff, hijack, all hands are in the muck. This is the low jack here. I look down at ace, king, 4, 5. Now we have the ace of hearts and the 4 of hearts, so we have a suited ace. We do have the king of spades and the 5 of clubs. I go ahead and limp for 3,000. Now, this was a table draw that I was not familiar with at all. The gentleman across from me in seat 8 or 9, the guy in the blue shirt I've played with a few times, and the guy in the seat 1 I've played with for a few times. The guy to my right who has his own zip code, I've never played with him, but he had a huge stack. He had over 400,000 to start the day. Flop comes out 4, 6, 8 with 2 spades. Now we are multi-way in this pot. You can see there's 13.5K in the pot. So I go ahead and check. It checks all the way around. Now the turn comes out a king of hearts. This gives me 2 pair. First player decides to check. Gets to me. Now with 2 pair and the king of spades that is blocking, I feel like this is something I can get some value from. I'm going to get calls by straight draws. I might get called by spades. I go ahead and elect to bet 12,000 into a 13.5K pot. And in springs the trap from the guy who has the ginormous stack. So it's going to fold around to him. The guy who has the huge stack, which is directly to my right, he's going to do something that you don't see too often in tournaments unless you're drawing. He is actually going to check raise. Now, instead of check potting it, he's going to check value raise. And what I mean by that is you'll see here in a minute, I made it 12,000. There's 25,000 in the pot. He decides to check raise to 27,000. So really it's only an extra 15,000 for me to call. Now, you could say he could be doing this with blockers. Keep in mind this is day 2, 39 people left. On this point, I have to decide, do I just want to shove it? Do I want to call? If I call, I literally have a 1-to-1 SPR, stack to pot size ratio. Or I can fold. I think folding is too nitty here. So I go ahead and I elect to call. So you can see now there's 71,000 in the pot. I have 71,000 in my stack. And I figured at this point, if a spade comes off, I can represent spades. Instead, the 9 of hearts comes off. And when he checks it to me, I'm trying to debate, if I go all in here, what's going to call me that I beat? Like if he checked raise, he could be doing it with pocket 6s, pocket 8s. He could, of course, be doing it with 5-7. 5-7 doesn't make too much sense because he checked twice. But at the same time, the 9 changes nothing. 5-7 still beats me, so I like to check. And he turns over 5-7, the stone cold nuts. So we're going to end up losing this one, but check back behind, very safe play. Next hand we look down, deuce 4, 5-5, under the gun +1. We're going to send it in the muck. Next hand, 10-10, 4-8, under the gun. Now you might say it's pocket 10s, I should play it. That goes in the muck. Now you can see the next hand, we're in the big blind here. And you can see that the level has gone up. We're at level 15, so the blinds are 2K, 4K, 4K. I look down at 3-4-7 queen. Not exactly a great starting hand. My stack size has dwindled a little bit. We're down at 63K, so when somebody raises, I like to let it go. Now this next hand here, you can see we look down at 3 of clubs, 10 of clubs, and then kings. Now we do have 3 clubs. We're not in love with this hand, but we have 15 big blinds, and we're out of the small blind. So when it gets around to middle position decides to open it for a full pot size bet. Now, this is after one person limped. Now, when you're deciding on whether or not to jam with kings, this is something that I go back and forth on. Usually if there's 1 or 2 limpers, I end up jamming with kings, and the reason why is because it's a good chance that somebody was limping with a weak ace, like ace-5 suited with 2 danglers or ace-10 with 2 danglers, something to that effect. So when I see that, I decide to re-raise. You can see right there I'm in for 44,000. I only have like 17,000 left or so. And I'm really hoping that I can just get a fold from this guy. It folds from the big blind, folds from the limpers, and then he just decides to rip it. I say, oh no, I might have stepped into it. I go ahead and turn over my hand. Again, king, 10, 3 for 15 bigs. You can see here that the opponent is free rolling us with king, ace, deuce. We only have 20% equity. After the flop comes out, we have 0.73% equity. And then when the turn and the river comes out, we're going to end up chopping this one. We dodge a little bit of a bullet on a free roll. Ooh, that was a good one to dodge. Let's hopefully we don't get free rolled anymore throughout the tournament. I guess we're going to have to watch and find out, aren't we? So in this hand, I'm on the button. Obviously, when you're on the button, you can play any 4 cards. I look down at ace, 10 of clubs with the 3 of spades and the 6 of diamonds. Again, I hope you guys like this new format. This is kind of my tournament format. Let me know what you guys think about it. I'm trying to make it a little bit easier to see and understand and follow the action, especially when I do videos where it's every single hand, because the amount of editing that goes into it is absolutely insane. But for an $8,000 raise, you can see no one is in the mood to fold. Matter of fact, there's 52K in the pot when the blind levels are 2K, 4K, 4K. So literally there's quite a bit of blinds in the pot. Flop comes ace of diamonds, jack of hearts, 6 of spades. So we flop 2 pair, it's top and bottom pair. We have less than a 1-to-1 SPR, and we're last to act. Now, you guys can probably imagine what I'm about to do here. People are checking, multi-way pots. You know, there is some draws out there. There's some Broadway draws. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to bet pot. I'm going to bet 52K. I have 13K left. This is basically if somebody raises, I'm going to go all in. I'm just going to run with it. Gentleman to my left decides to go all in for just a little bit less money. And this is when, in a tournament,
You don't want to go three ways, but you also need to acquire some chips. So in my brain, I'm thinking, I'm ahead. This guy's probably got a Broadway draw. I don't think he has ace jack. And the big stack is left to act. And I'm thinking to myself, the big stack is probably a pretty loose guy in this situation. Like, he does make some check raises when he's super nutted and he slow plays some hands. But I think this is a hand where he can actually call off. So we do get a call from the first player who's got a little bit less than I do. So he is all in. Now he's going back to the big stack, and I'm thinking this guy had to run up to 400K somehow. Hopefully he calls, so that way we have a side pot that we can play for even a little bit more. I don't mind getting called. I think I'm going to get called here by ace king, ace queen. Obviously, if he has ace jack, he would have already been in the pot. But you can see some players are folding around, and it is on the big stack. And the big stack, he finally decides to call. And I like it. I'm thinking to myself, this is actually what I want. I've only got 13,000 left, so if a jack does come on the turn, I'm probably just going to check, and I will call whatever he bets, which would really suck because if he does have ace king, ace queen, he's going to catch up. I'm thinking any card under a 10 is completely safe. Turn card comes the 10 of hearts. Now, even though it does put Broadway out there, I'm like, well, it does give me a better two pair in some situations. Big stack looks over at my stack and says, ha, you only got like 13,000? Yes, sir. He puts me all in. I call. He forces me to put the rest of my chips in, and we're actually ahead. He's got ace queen, so I have to dodge a jack, a queen, or a king. For the main pot, the other gentleman has ace 10, and a 3 of diamonds comes out, and we get a big side pot. Woo! Oh, yeah. You can see that our stack is now 131,000. We look down at king 667 in the cutoff, fold. 7 deuce 3, jack, fold. In the low jack, we have 4 4 4 10, fold. Deuce 7 ace 4, no suits. This situation, we're going to lay this one down as well. King jack, queen 7 with 3 hearts, that's a fold. Now let's get on to the big blind. We have ace of clubs, jack of spades, 7 of spades, and deuce of spades. We're still at the 2,000, 4,000 blind levels. We're on level 15. Our stack size after we pay the big blind ante is 123,000. Middle position, player in middle position on seat 1 decides to limp in. And you're going to find a lot of times in day 2, people are going to be min-raising or limping in. The gentleman who's in the small blind, who's the guy that has his own zip code, decides to limp in as well. And I go ahead and check. So we're going to go 3 ways to the flop. There's a total of 16,000 in the pot with the big blind ante. And here comes the flop. The flop is 8-9 queen, complete rainbow. Now, some of you might say, Professor, you should show some aggression here. You got a gut shot. Instead, I decide to check when the big blind checks. The middle position player decides to check as well, even though he's in position. Turn comes the 3 of hearts. Again, the small blind, he just decides to check. I don't know. Something just doesn't feel right here. So I'm just going to check behind as well. I don't have anything really. I have a gut shot. There's 2 hearts out there. I don't want to bet and have somebody call on a heart draw. Gentleman behind checks behind. Rivers and ace of hearts. Now we actually have showdown with ace jack. In some situations, we are going to win. Gentleman checks in the small blind. I decide to check. Guy checks behind me. And the small blind had a set of 9s and didn't bet his hand. We lose this one, but we lost the minimum. Now we're in the small blind, and we're going to look down at a playable hand. The hand that we're going to look down at here is 5, 7, 9, 10. We're double suited at both in hearts and in spades. The big blind, which is the probably second or third in chips at this point in the tournament with like about 30 people left, maybe 28 people left, he decides to min raise it to $8,000. Now I could get out of line here, but again, I only have 123 to start. So I'm going to go ahead and call $8,000. My stack size left is 117,000. And we're going to go heads up to the flop as the big blind decides to release his hand for just a minimum raise. So I'm completely okay with that. This guy does like to slow play, though. And when you do have somebody who likes to slow play, you always have to be wary if they all of a sudden start betting. Because usually people who like to slow play, if they start betting, they usually have a monster. In any case, the flop comes king, jack, 5, complete rainbow. I check it over to him. I have a gut shot straight draw with a pair of 5s. He bets nearly pot, and I'm just going to fold this one and get on to the next hand. I always say you can play the button, but when you look down at a hand and it's something like 4, 5, 6, 9 with just 2 hearts, these are not hands that you want to play in tournaments. Those are hands you want to play in cash games on the button, so I go ahead and lay that down. Next hand we look at is ace of spades, 7 of spades, 3 of clubs, and 10 of hearts. Now we're in the cutoff here. So this is actually a playable hand depending if the action ahead of me does not raise.
So when it gets around to me, stack size is 117,000. Again, we're at the 2K, 4K big blinds. So right now we're sitting at about 28 big blinds or so. I'm going to go ahead and limp. Everybody right now is limping on this table. I'm okay with that. I'd rather play small ball poker at this point, especially since we are in day 2. We're down to about 4 tables left, maybe 5 tables at this point. And we don't want to do anything crazy. Our goal right now is to get down to the final table before we start making some moves and some aggression moves. So we're going to go 4 ways to the flop on level 15. So there's a total of $20,000 in the pot. And we are in position. So the button essentially mucked, and we're basically the button now. Flop comes king, queen, 4 with 2 clubs. Now we have a gut shot straight here. But again, we're playing small ball poker. Our strategy right now is just to keep the pot small, take them down. So when it checks to me, I like to check. Now when the turn comes another king, at this point, I've already decided if everybody checks to me, I'm just going to bet and steal the pot because I could have any kind of combination of king. I could have king 7, 8, 6, king 9, 8, 7, whatever the case may be. So when everybody checks to me, I put my plan in action. I put out a small wager, and everybody ends up folding around, and we're going to pick up a little pot here, but it's still worth picking it up. Down at 4, 5, 10 jack, all spades in the hijack. This is an easy fold. Now, here we are in the low jack. We look down at 6, 9, deuce 3, rainbow, easy fold. 9, 8, ace 3, fold. 4, 5, 9, 10 with 1 suit of diamonds, easy fold. Now you can see we're going to be in the big blind here, and we're going to end up looking down at pocket 9s. Now, the level has gone up. We're at 3K, 5K, 5K. It's going to fold around. We have the player who is under the gun, who is a super short stack, ends up limping for 5K. He has about 30K total in his stack, give or take a little bit. It gets all the way down to the small blind, who happens to be the big chip stack at the table, 400K or so, and he elects to raise. Now, when he elects to raise, and I look down at 9958, I'm thinking, okay, I have 128,000. There's a potential of doubling up here. This is a situation in which sometimes I'm going to call, sometimes I'm going to fold. Since it's only an extra $8,000, I decide to go ahead and call. So we're going to go 3 ways to the flop, and the flop, lo and behold, is going to come out ace, ace, 9. We flop a monster. We have 9s full of aces. I am sitting here thinking about the Mirage, the Taj Mahal, the whole 9 yards. I'm thinking, come on, let's get it in, baby. And he bets 25,000. I immediately rip it. I'm like, I'm all in. This is my degree all in moment. Also known as my Brad Owen moment. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe. See if we can fade a call here or see if we can fade some outs. I know one of these 2 players has an ace with some danglers. I'm really hoping it's the big stack because the other person who called only had $2,000 left, which means we're going to win at least $23,000 in the side pot if the big stack folds. But I really want him to call here because this is a great opportunity to make a deep run in the tournament with less than 30 players left. This is a situation where every point in a tournament comes where you're like, I need to make a run for it. I need to sweat some outs. Obviously, we've already sweated a few outs here, but in this situation, I'm sitting in my head and I'm just praying for a call. I know at best he's got 9 outs. If he has something like ace, 10, 10, deuce, then he even has less outs. He's probably only got like 5 outs. So here I am thinking about him calling, and he ends up folding. Ooh. So we win a nice side pot here. Now the other gentleman who's in the hand has ace, 5, 7, 10. So we do have a sweat here. He's drawn to a full house. We got to dodge 9 outs here. He's got about a 30% chance. Oh, the turn is an 8. Swing and a miss. River's a 6. We're going to scoop this one with the full house. Small blind here, and we have a total of 194,000 in chips. So again, when the blinds are 3,000, 5,000, 5,000, we're now sitting pretty comfortable with well over 30 big blinds. And that's something you always want to be sitting at in a pot limit Omaha tournament because it does give you enough ability to see some flops. We look down at deuce, 8, 8, king with the deuce, 8 of diamonds and the 8 of clubs and king of hearts. And being in the small blind, being the fact that it's a total of 5,000 to go, we're going to go ahead and call. So we've got a couple of limpers in here, and we're going to go ahead and see a flop. So there's 4-way action going to the flop, and lo and behold, the flop is 2 hearts and 1 spade. 3 of hearts, 8 of spades, 10 of hearts. We flop a set. We're not going to slow play it here, but we are going to value bet. We bet about half pot. anytime you want to get called in pot limit Omaha, you should try luring your opponents in somehow. So I bet half pot, 13K, the big stack calls me. The turn is the 9 of spades, which brings in the front door straight, but it does not bring in the flush. Now there's two ways of playing it. I can bet or I can play small ball. We decided we're playing small ball poker. We want to get to the final table before we make some serious pressure moves. So we go ahead and check. Big stack checks behind. Now he has slow played in the past, so I can't exactly just lead with a full pot size bet. Plus, what is going to call a full pot size bet here? No, I need a target value. I need to get target like something like 2 pair, like 10-9, 10-8. Maybe a set of threes is going to call here. So I bet pretty small here, about half the size of the pot again. I'm hoping I get a call. And he's going in the tank for a little bit, and he's looking me up and down, and I feel perfectly comfortable with this. I mean, he has slow played a little bit. He could be slow playing a straight, but if he does have something like 6-7, even 7-jack, I don't think he can raise here very often. The only hands that he can ever raise here with is jack-queen. So part of this bet is what we call a blocker bet. If anything, I expect him to call, or he's going to fold. And I'm good with either way. He ends up folding, and we scoop a nice little pot. At this point in the tournament, we are looking at 227,000 in our stack. Feeling really good. This is the highest point we've been at in the tournament so far. I'm on the button. And if you're curious what hands are premium in Pot Limit Omaha tournament versus cash, they are a little bit different. But anything that's considered like Ace King XX with a suited ace or a suited king, or possibly 4 cards above 8, this is one that qualifies because I'm on the button. So we look down at Ace, King, 10, 7, and the King and 7 are suited in diamonds. So when the big stack to my right, who I've been in a way targeting, raises it up to $13,000, he's basically 2.5xing it. I'm not going to go anywhere with a hand like this. I'm in position. I've got position on the guy that's got a bigger stack than I, and I've also been exploiting him quite well so far and playing very well at this point. And I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to re-raise him because that would just be a little too loose. We're still playing small ball. But look at this. The big blind calls, and we're going to go 4 ways to the flop. Now, the flop comes Jack 3-6. Complete rainbow. Jack of spades, 3 of diamonds, 6 of hearts. When you have a non-connected board like this and the gentleman just leads out and bets pot-size bet, this is an amateur player who is showing that he has a set of 6s or a set of jacks, and he's really afraid of the draws out there. But I've got to ask you, what are the draws out there? Obviously, I'm just waiting my turn to fold. I'm not going to do anything with this hand. When the big stack folds, I fold behind. Really, nothing else much to do there. Now we're in the cutoff, 7-10, Queen 3 with a suited queen. This is not a playable hand unless you want to burn up some chips, so we go ahead and muck that. Now that we're in the hijack, we look down at Jack 8, Deuce 6. To do here, but to get rid of the hand. Again, I like easy decisions when it comes to these situations. Now that we're in the low jack, we're still on level 16. We look down at 4, 5, 7, 8. We're double suited. We have 2 clubs and 2 spades. Now, because we're in late position, this is a hand we can play with. This is not a hand that I want to be 3-betting in a Pot Limit Omaha tournament. Now, if this was a cash game, I'd probably be 3-betting with this quite a bit with a 1-gapper in position. But because we're in a tournament, again, we're playing low ball. Our stack size is down to 214,000 or so. We're going to go ahead and limp in for 5K. And I don't mind if somebody does raise. I will see a flop with this hand. This is very much a smash or pass hand. But again, we're playing low ball. We have the second biggest stack on the table, or maybe the third biggest stack on the table. So right now, what we're really trying to do is target small stacks on the table. And the challenge with this hand is if I do raise in a small stack 3 bets, I'm going to have to end up calling them if they only have like 40 or 50K, because I'm going to be getting the appropriate odds. So instead, we play small ball. We limp in for 5,000, and we're actually going to go see a flop 4 ways, which this hand plays pretty well 4 ways. Now, again, this is a completely disconnected board. Queen, 7 deuce, complete rainbow. So really the only things people should be betting here are 2 pair and sets, like Queen 7, Queen deuce, set of deuces, set of 7s, or set of queens. Now, because I have a blocker, with a 7, which, believe it or not, is a viable blocker, and people are playing passive on this table. I'm starting to pick up how passive this table is, so I'm starting to change my game a little bit and playing a little bit more aggressively. I'm still playing small ball, and I'm playing in position, but I make a wager, and it ends up getting everybody to fold. So we're going to scoop a nice little pot here just by playing small ball. So mention in tournaments, when you start realizing that your table is playing a little too tight, it's important to play small ball and pick up these small pots because they can have huge impacts towards the end. Moving right along, now we are under the gun and we look down at what I would consider a monster. Ace, Queen, Jack 10 with the suited ace of diamonds. This is a hand that we're going to come in for a raise. Blinds are 3,000, 5,000. We make it 12. There's really no point in potting it here. Again, we've been playing small ball the whole time, but if somebody does 3-bet us here, we are definitely going to call. We may even consider 4-betting or just jamming, depending if it's one of those small stacks in the hand. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go to a flop and see what develops if no one raises us. And so far it folds around to the button. Now it's back onto the small blind. So at this point I know I'm going to have position. And again, when you're raising in a tournament under the gun, it signifies that you have a lot of strength. So people could be putting me on aces at this point. But also, I know with the table playing a little passive, I don't mind being a little aggressive if I get the right flop against the right opponent. Now, the person who does call me is the large stack. Flop comes 8-9 king. I flop a complete wrap. Now, the reason why I check it behind is because it's the only guy I didn't want to call at the table, the guy who has me covered. He checked in front of me. I checked behind. He's been slow playing a lot. Turn comes an 8 of spades. I can probably represent an 8 of spades here. I have seen him be sticky in a few other hands, so I decided to check, and I have seen him slow play like a set of 9s and things of that nature and a nut straight. So he checks again, and I check again, and he has ace king. We're in the big blind, and we have level 16 ahead of us, 3K, 5K, 5K. And again, we're going to stick with our mentality of small ball poker. Let me know what you guys think about this strategy. Some people like to just come in swinging the whole time and pot limit Omaha. And in some situations that makes sense. Maybe if I was like the biggest stack on the table, I'd be potting it a lot. But since I'm still trying to climb my way up, I believe in small ball poker until it's about the right time. Also, I just believe that I'm a little bit better player post-flop than a lot of these guys. And people who aren't as good at pot limit Omaha or navigating the flops, the turns, and the rivers, they are better off putting in their money in pre-flop and applying more pressure that way. So I'm okay in the big blind looking down at 3, 5, 7, 9 with a 9, 5 of hearts and just checking it. Now when the flop comes out, Queen 9, 7, we flop bottom 2 pair. We're 3 ways to the flop. 2 gentlemen across from me are actually the 2 guys that are in this hand with me. I'm going to go ahead and continue small ball poker. I bet 13,000. I'm expecting maybe one of them will call with like a straight draw or possibly a diamond draw. I might get 2 folds out of them. This table has been playing pretty passive with the exception of the big stack who's been a little splashy. So the first player gets out of the way and the second player says, you know what, 13,000 seems good enough for me. So we're going to end up going to the turn. And pardon me, we were 4 ways to the flop. Now the turn brings out the 8 of hearts. I don't like this card. It does bring in backdoor hearts for me, but it brings in the front door straight. I do still have bottom 2 pair, so I have a little bit of showdown value. I go ahead and check it. I want to realize my equity. He checks back. And the river is the jack of hearts. Now we do make backdoor hearts. I could bet here, but what's really going to call me here? Maybe a 10. 10x might call me in some situations. I just decided to play it safe. I check. He checks behind, I announce a flush, and we're good. Right along into the small blind, still level 16. Blinds are 3K, 5K, 5K, and we end up gonna have a break at the end of this level. They're 40-minute levels on day 2, and we look down at 10, 7, 6, 4 with the 6, 7 of spades. Now, because we're in the small blind and no one raised, we're gonna go ahead and call. We have 251,000 in our stack, and we're gonna go 4 ways to the flop. Now the flop comes 10, 9, 5. I have top pair, gut shot straight draw, and a 7 high spade draw. So I do have some equity here. I like to check. Again, we're going with the small pot mentality. A lot of amateur players here, if they have a big hand, they're just going to firebomb the flop. When it checks around, 5 of hearts comes on the turn. Again, I still have enough showdown value that a 10 may be good here some of the time. No one's really showing some aggression here. So I check. checks all the way back around, and we're going to go see a river. River pops out a 10, so I do have 3 10s, but I actually have a spade flush. It does bring in the front door flush. Now, since I have 7 high spades, I like to check because I don't think anything's going to call me except a bigger flush. When I turn over a flush 4 ways, we end up being good, and we're going to scoop this one. So moving on to the button, this is probably one of the few hands I did not catch in camera. I was in the 5 seat, and sometimes when you're in the 5 seat recording hands, you got to be careful who's looking at your hands. This in the cutoff 5-5, 6-10 is an easy fold. Now this next hand in the hijack, again, we're on level 16, we're not on the break yet. This is a really interesting hand, and this is when plan A does not work. And we're going to look down at 6-7-8-8 with a suited 8-7 of clubs. Now, I went ahead and limped. The button decides to raise it up to $25,000. This is going to get the small blind and the big blind to fold. And the guy who's been the big stack at the table, who has been splashy to my right, he elects to call. And this is a hand that I think actually plays pretty well 3 ways. I mean, I can either smash or pass on the flop. If I do hit any kind of wrap draw, I can apply pressure. If I hit a set, I can apply pressure. So in a pot situation like this, I don't mind playing 3 ways, closing out the action. The flop comes Jack 10-6. Complete rainbow. Now, I don't like this flop. This is one of the few flops that I don't like, or one of the couple flops that I don't like, because really I'm just drawing to a gut shot straight with a 9. So I just decide to check it. It checks on the button, and lo and behold, the turn comes a 7. It gives us bottom 2 pairs, so now we're beating hands like aces and kings and queens, and it does give us blockers. Now, when the person to my right, who is the big stack, decides to check, and the original raiser is to my left, my plan is to check pot here, because if I did have 8-9, I would check pot it. When I check, the button obliges and bets $50,000. And I'm thinking, all right, Mr. Big Stack, just get out of the way, because I'm going to check pot and take this hand down. It does bring in backdoor diamonds, but if my opponent has something like king, king, queen, X with diamonds, I don't mind it because I am winning right now. And if they have something like ace, ace, X with no diamonds, they're probably just going to end up folding. And if they had Jack 10, we would have heard from them on the flop. So my entire plan is I'm going to check pot. And what the guy to my right just called. What are you calling with? He literally calls. My whole plan is foiled. And I'm just dumbfounded because I think I can check pot and get one person to fold, but I don't think I can get the big stack to fold. So in a situation like this, I ended up folding. One player had queen, queen, king. The other player had king, king, queen. So had I checked pot, I would have won a huge one, but I end up laying it down. Frustrated with that last hand. We look down at the low jack, deuce 3, 5, 7, easy fold. But from that last hand, you know, sometimes you just got to forget them and move on. Under the gun, we look down at ace, king, 3, 7. It's not a suited ace, so this is something I'm going to fold. Now I look down at the big blind, and I look down at 4, 8, 8, 9. Boy, I feel like these 8s are haunting me at this point. Now we are on level 17, 3K, 6K, 6K. Pardon me, our break is going to come on level 17, not on level 16 like I just told you. We restarted the day on level 14, so there's 3 levels of play, 40-minute levels. And the action's going to come around to me, and, you know, I just... This hand's okay. It's okay to play for a little bit of a raise. I mean, I do have 2 middling cards. I have pocket 8s. So when the big stack decides to make it 12,000, I go ahead and call. And we're going to end up going, I believe it's 4 ways to the flop. Yeah, 4 ways to the flop. So there's 54K in the pot. I'm hoping we can bink a set here. Flop comes 3-10 queen with 2 hearts. I only have the 9 of hearts in my hand. I'm going to check on this hand, and if anybody bets, I'm just going to get rid of the hand entirely. Now, the original raiser does not bet. He checks. The gentleman across the seat from me decides to bet full pot. He's got a 1-to-1 SPR. He's not going to be bluffing here, so we end up laying it down. We're in the small blind. We're going to continue our method of playing small ball poker. If you are curious, like, a lot of times making deep runs, sometimes you just got to play a little bit more passive when you're in the middle of a tournament. Now we look down at a pretty decent starter, ace 6, 8, 9 with the suited ace of hearts. I don't like that this hand has 3 hearts in it, but when everybody's limping and it's only another 3,000 for me to call, and you know there's going to be, what, 4 people in the pot, and 30,000 in the pot if the big blind decides to just check it back. And so far, this table's been pretty passive when it comes to pot limit Omaha. So I go ahead and make the call for an extra 3,000. Big blind ends up checking it. So again, our plan is going into action when we go 4 ways to a flop. Now the flop is 9, 10, jack, all clubs. I'm pretty much done with this hand. I go ahead and check. Anybody reaches for chips, I'm going to end up folding this hand. It checks around to the button, and the button decides to check as well. Turn comes a king of hearts. This does not improve our hand. Maybe if a 9 came out there, I could do something with this. But again, I'm showing you 100% of the hands. I check around to the button, button bets, we fold. Now we're on the button, and we are going to look down at 3, 4, 9, queen, all clubs. We're going to muck this, and we're getting a new table assigned. Go ahead, give a shout out to the old Greektown buddies.
Shout out to old time Greektown buddies, bud.
There we go.
You guys.
Got a new table seat assignment.
Never been the good old days, man. Bazookies in Greektown.
Down to 27 players, and of course the guy to my right is from D-Town, from Detroit. Greektown used to be a great place to play poker at, but we're not talking about that here. We're talking about the PLO 100K guarantee with 27 people left. We look down at king, king, deuce, deuce. So we do have a suited king in the hearts, and in a hand like this, a brand new table, I am going to raise. I don't like to raise too much, so I just make it a measly $20,000. And the button decides to call me. Now you can see those blue chips on his stack are 25K chips. This was the guy who was directly to my right. We were able to take advantage of position on him all day. Now he's directly to my left. I do not like this. We've got $55,000 in the pot as we go heads up to a flop, and everybody else gets out of the way, so at least we're heads up, which is something that I do like. And the flop is going to come out ace of hearts, 6 of clubs, 8 of clubs. Now, my opponent behind me has been playing small ball with me previously. He's also been slow playing, so I like to check. Curious what he does here. He decides to check back real quickly, so he's probably signifying something like queens or jacks, maybe even 10s. When the board pairs an 8, I check. If he does reach for chips and bet at it, I'm probably going to fold because anything with his combinations could have an 8 in it. He checks back, so we're fortunate enough to see the river, which is the 10 of spades. Again, I'm just going to check here. He hasn't shown any aggression at this pot. Neither have I. I'm okay with playing small ball. If he does check back, it's because he has some kind of showdown value, and he does check back, and our kings are good. And down to the last 3 tables in the hijack, deuce, 4, 6, 9. We're not going to do anything with this. We're just going to muck it. We still have 268,000 in the stack, level 17, deuce, deuce, 4, 10. Again, this is an easy muck. Now we're in mid position, 5, 7, 8, 10. There is some connectivity here, but in a tournament, I don't want to start risking my stack yet, not with 27 left. Under the gun +1, we look down at ace, 10, 3, 4. If it was a suited ace, I'd probably play it. I end up mucking it. Under the gun, we look down at deuce, 5, 10, queen. We have a suited 10. Again, under the gun, not strong enough a hand to play, so we end up mucking it. Now we're in the big blind, and we look down at 6, 7, queen, king with 3 hearts in our hand. We don't like having 3 hearts in our hand, but the fact that we are in the big blind does give us some kind of value, so we're hoping we can just see a flop for cheap. Factoring in that even though we do have a new table selection, there are some players here at the tournament that we haven't played any hands with yet. So if somebody does raise, being that I'm on the big blind, I'm probably going to call here as long as it's not a full pot size bet. If it's something reasonable like a men click, so the gentleman who's under the gun +2 decides to raise it up to $13,000, I figured I'm half in. I do have king, queen of hearts. I do have a 3rd heart in my hand. I don't like this. This is not a premium hand. If I was not in the big blind, I would not be playing this. So again, with the big blind, it's another $7,000 for me to call, and the pot ends up being $36,000. So we're going to go to a flop and see what happens. Flop comes out 8-8 queen with the 8 of spades and the queen of spades. Now I do have some showdown value here. I'm going to continue my small ball mentality, so I go ahead and check it. He checks it back. Turn comes a 9 of diamonds. Now in a situation like this, I am going to apply a little bit of pressure. I bet 15,000. I figured I have some showdown value here. I'm trying to get called by queen jack, queen 10, 9 10, 9 jack, and instead he decides to jam. Now, what is he ever jamming here with? Is he ever jamming with anything that's worse than queen king? I don't think so. I think he's either got Jack, Jack 10 or 10, 10, Jack, so I end up laying it down. Save my chips for another battle. I found that information out cheap. Small blind, we're going to look down at ace 338. If this was a suited ace, I'd consider playing it, but without it being a suited ace, we're just going to lay it in the muck. On the button, we look down at ace, queen, deuce, 7. Again, if this is a suited ace, this is a hand I don't mind playing without the suit. I'm just going to end up mucking it. Now we're in the cutoff, and we look down at king, queen, queen, 4. Now we do have 3 diamonds in our hand. In some situations I play this, there is a raise ahead of us. Because somebody else is raising, I'm going to fold it in the cutoff. Had no one raised, I probably would have opened for a raise. In the hijack, we look down at almost the exact same hand. King, queen, queen, deuce with 3 diamonds and pocket queens. Now this is the difference between somebody opening and you calling, because in Pot Limit Omaha tournaments, if you want to run deep, you want to be the one that is either raising and you want to make your opponents draw. You don't want to be the one who is calling off too very often. So the blinds being 3K, 6K, I like to raise. I make it 18,000. I figured this is a hand that, you know what, I just want to see a flop with or take it down right here. I'm okay either way. And we end up getting one player who ends up calling, and everybody else looks like, nope, we're going to get a second player who's going to call. So now we're going to go 3 ways to the flop. I did not want to see 3 ways. Plus the player who called behind me happens to have position. He's on the button. So his range is going to be a little bit wider. Flop comes 3, 3, 10. Now this is a pretty safe flop for our hand. I mean, we do have an overpair. The only hands that we're really losing to here are aces, kings. I do have a king blocker. I think aces I probably would have heard of, and any dangling 3s. So I like to bet $22,000. This is about a third pot size bet. It gets back to the other player who elects to call. At this point, I'm not in love with my hand. I mean, it's a pretty dry board. There are 2 diamonds out there. I do have 2 diamonds in my hand. Turn comes the king of hearts. Now, this has given us a little bit more showdown value. I'm not going to go crazy with it. I do have queens as a blocker. So when he checks to me, I'm thinking to myself, maybe if a 9 or an ace comes out, I can represent pocket aces. If a 9 comes out, I can represent a straight. I like to check, realize my equity. We might have gotten bailed out here because the river is the king of clubs. And now my opponent decides to go in the tank for a little bit. And I'm trying to think, what is he really tanking here with? He ends up reaching for chips. And I'm thinking, please don't put a pot size bet out here because that's really going to stress me the hell out. I'm willing to call about a half pot size bet here. I think king queen has enough value. You can see everybody getting up. We're on the break. He elects to wager $20,000. Now I have to decide, $20,000 really looks like a 3 or a 10 or a please don't call me bet. Can I raise and get something worse to call me? I figured I probably can't raise and get a worse hand to call me. So my best situation here is just a call, and we turn it over, and our king with a queen kicker is good. He probably had a dangling 3 would be my guess.
So we're sitting at 313,000 on the break. There's 25 or 26 people left. Next ladder up's like 23rd, and then 19. I really don't look at ladder ups when I'm this deep in a tournament. Blinds are going to be coming back at 4 and 8K. So with 313, we've got a lot of mobility. We got 40 big blinds. We're a little bit above chip average. Average chip stack, I think, is like 225 right now. So the average chip stack is going to have 30 bigs. So in a tournament like this, when the average chip stack's like 30 and 40 and no one has like over 1 million yet, the tendency is to play tight and play small ball poker. Our goal right now, we have several goals that we set for the day. First goal is to chip up, get to final table. Second goal is to get past 6th. We get 6 or better, we're even for the trip. Third goal is to get top 3. Fourth goal is to get first. So we're on our way to the first goal, which is final table. The table I'm at right now is pretty passive. I had the guy that was on my right in the previous table is now on my left, and then he got moved. He was a huge chip stack. He slow played a lot. Keep that in mind. I just did a pan around the table. There's really only 1 or 2 people who have as many chips as I do on the table, so there's a decent amount of short stacks. We're going to be targeting those short stacks. That's what we're going to be exploiting. And just get it in with really good equity. You know, prior to today, going into day two, I probably did everything you're not supposed to do. I was up till like 4:30 in the morning, super tired, had that Airbnb customer service issue. When we ship this, get final table, top six, top three, we're gonna enjoy that jacuzzi quite a bit. So let's continue running it up. But I'm like beyond focus. Sometimes going into a tournament, mindset is everything. I just came in last night with the mindset that I was going to back. Came in with the mindset today that I'm going to run deep, play really smart. Every time I'm going to get it in, I'm going to get it in with good equity. So, no gambling right now. It's not a chance, not a time to gamble. Now, when we get down to like the final table and shit, depending on what the chip stacks are, you know, it depends on whether or not we want to go for it because we're going to go for it. First place is like 21K, but yeah, we're gonna see what we can do. So let's spin it up, keep going, and keep the momentum going.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This is the official outro, if you will. I am finishing up this video in Dallas. I appreciate all of you guys. Let me know what you think about the new format, if you guys like it, if you don't like it, or what you like about it. As you can see, there's a little bit of hardware behind me. TCH Las Colinas was great down here in Dallas. They did not allow me to record. I ended up getting first place in a double bomb pot tournament with, I believe it was 94 or 97 entrants. I can't remember offhand. But we ended up shipping some hardware on this one down here in Dallas. But I don't know if this video is, or this tournament's going to be 2 or 3 videos in length. I've had some people tell me that they love the long format, and I've had some people tell me that they don't like it. I'm mixing in a little bit of Life of a Grinder in these videos, but definitely let me know what you guys think. And I appreciate all the shares, likes, and subscribes. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the Venetian. Again, it's going to be the last Friday of every month. We're going to be doing a live stream 10-10 mix starting in March. And then the last Saturday of every month, we are going to be doing a meetup game. And our meetup game here in February, I've already posted that. It's also going to be in the comments or in the description down below. Appreciate all of you, and I hope you guys have a good February. So my January ended up being pretty well, or my February started off pretty well as I shipped this one on Sunday. But yeah, stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 to see how we do on this one. So play smart, everybody, and run like a god.